Hey everyone, welcome back to a really special episode in the month of May, focusing on the mamas of the Inchstones podcast. I have my friend here, Kerry Stevens, who is mother to a son who
Hi.
attended the same preschool as my kiddos did. And Kerry came into my life in a way through a wonderful group of women who, as we always say here on Inchstones, it takes a village, but it really takes other autism moms who understand what you're going through. And Kerry is no different. Kerry, you have been on your own journey as I have been with mine, but there's been so many crossovers. And before I press record, I said, how are you doing? How are you managing it all? And we both had this, same response of like, this life expects so much energy from you, so much money, so much time, so much presence. I don't think there's words to sometimes say the gravity of what we hold. And I would love to hear you talk more about that because I think you have your own unique things that you carry with Connor, but mostly what it means to carry it all and to work and to find your own time. So talk with me more about that.
So I just left a job that I was with for 4 years. I started as full time and then I was forced into part time because I was told my child was, requiring too much of my attention, which, made me feel terrible. Not at the time, not at the time, I didn't feel terrible because they were blaming Connor. I felt terrible because I was like, I'm this terrible human being that I can't even carry a job and have, and take care of my child kind of thing.
Right. Like that reality is so real of like this, it begs so much of you.
Yeah. So, but then as time went on, like I said, I just, resigned on Friday. As time went on, I started to realize that my anger was more because they blamed my child. You're too distracted, your child, requires too much care, you're making mistakes. And I'm like, and it was always like, I'm human. I'm going to make mistakes. And I'm also a mom. Forget that he has autism. I'm a mom in general. And good moms are going to have their kids on their brains all day,
Yeah.
every day.
The caregiving load that obviously is augmented with children on the spectrum without a doubt. But the idea that your hat as being Connor's mom is just put off to the side is something that I think we just can't separate or divorce in any sort of conversation around the needs of autistic children is that you and I right now, I mean, I sit here, my phone's right here because the nurse was pinging me 15 minutes before we jumped on about a choking incident that happened at Mac's school of him today. And I'm about to jump on another Zoom. So there's a inability for the nervous system of just a human being in general, let alone a mother, to actually put that off to the side. And I think when children have so many extra diagnoses in life or comorbidities or incessant need for parental support, it's really hard to translate to the world who doesn't have any idea of what your reality is.
Yeah. Yeah. And, people can say, I'm a mom too. I get it. But you don't get it. You don't get the fact that I, had fertility issues and then I finally was able to get pregnant with Connor, had Connor and the excitement, and then to find out he has autism, the mourn the loss of what you thought motherhood would be.
Yeah.
You thought you'd be teaching your child how to talk and how to walk and how to just
The
do
monkey
silly
bars
things.
and yeah,
Yeah.
all these things that
Play baseball, ride a bike, something so small. Even just, telling your kid telling you, "Oh, mom, I don't feel good today." You know, you mourn all of that. And, it's still not, Connor will be 6 and there are days where I still mourn
yeah.
sometimes, but then more of me has accepted this path, but it's never a dull moment. You can never just turn everything out or shut everything out. You always have to have your phone on. You're always in fight or flight. Like you said, you're always waiting for the phone to ring. Oh, what happened now? What's going on now? Who did he bite or who did he hit or, you know, why did he drop on the floor?
Because the pattern of being a mother to children like ours insists upon it. So we can't unsee the patterns of behavior that our children do as they grow. Like like you said, the hypervigilance becomes sort of baked into what the norm becomes, not because I chose it to be, but because the pattern of behavior of these children require it, right? And I think I've spoken a lot on these episodes that I've recorded other moms, and I've been asking them all, did you ever realize until you became Connor's mom how much you were conditioned to expect typical? Like, do you ever realize like how much has been input, like for me in my almost 43 years of life? Like, I don't think I realized how much I like hook, line, and sinker bought the tale that everything was supposed to work out exactly how it was told it was supposed to work out.
Of course, of course.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I don't think anyone is ever prepared for this. And certainly, when even 6 years ago, Connor, not a lot of people even spoke about it. And now all of a sudden it's like, they're trying to bring it into normalcy. And it's like it's not normal. There's more to it than everyone thinks there is. And I
That's
won't,
right.
I won't that's for another episode.
No, it's very true about because the acceptance of this, I always say, like, I would always welcome, and not for any pomp and circumstance, but to sit in the reality. I would love and always welcome film crews and documentarians to really sit and come into my home and see what this is like on a daily basis and see and integrate so deeply over 30, 60, 90 days to know this never stops. This level of care doesn't stop, and it doesn't make it wrong. It's not that the world is evil. It's just that the requirements to be a mother to these kids is something that the majority of mothers move out of once their kids become toddlers or
Yes.
once their kids become more functioning. And when you have, we're typical, moms, when you at the age that we're at are squarely in a caregiver sustaining role that we thought in our bodies and minds had been projected to get out of at some point and you don't, there's a lot of internal friction that comes from that it's so hard to share with the outside world because you're like, I don't know how to talk about this without saying like, it's not even a hike. It's not even a marathon. It is whatever you think that you're unable to set down, you can't ever set down in this life. You can't.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I like to describe it as I still have a newborn,
Yes.
but he's 6,
But
and he
he's,
weighs about 55 pounds.
that's right. And he's getting stronger and he's getting bigger. Yeah. And those developmental parts are, I always say, like, I've got 3 beautiful and healthy children, and the comorbidities of the younger 2, what those do, like to my for my physical abilities, is only getting harder. What would you say to maybe some moms that are just getting the diagnosis? Because I know you and I can go down the rabbit hole of like the heaviness of it. Do you think that your acceptance, as you said before, how long did that take for you? When did you sort of hit the moment where you're like, you know what, this is going to be hard. This is the reality versus the person, the mom who's just digesting those words from a doctor?
I mean, it took a lot of therapy, but I think probably just about this year, maybe the end of last year, I've kind of said to myself, he's here. He didn't ask to be here. We put him on this planet. We have to take what we were given. So I'm going to do the best that I can. And, I'm going to push him to be his best self.
Hmm.
There's going to be times where I call it, sometimes there's 3 steps forward and, 1 step back. And then it's this constant, juggle. It's not easy. It's certainly not easy, and don't listen to anyone that's gonna tell you that it's easy. If you really care about your child and you're a good mom, which we are, it's gonna be a constant struggle, and one day is not gonna be the same as the next day.
I remember thinking when Millie got diagnosed and then subsequently Mac that I allowed myself to grieve a little bit, but I think that it
Mhm.
was a much shorter. I think I forced my movement out of the grief or out of the shock or out of the like vortex of confusion, maybe too fast. Like that I
Mhm.
was like, okay, this is the diagnosis, now let's keep going. And instead of realizing maybe I should just sit and process this for a little bit longer. I think I was so hell bent on getting things like moving to, I mean, let's be honest, like fix it or catch up,
Yes,
right?
yes, yeah, yeah.
That movement was not rooted in really what their needs were, but rooted in a sense of I needed this to be okay.
Yes. Yeah, of
right?
course, of course. When Connor was diagnosed, he was diagnosed at I think he was diagnosed about 18 months to 2 years old.
What were you noticing before that?
Actually, he I thought he was developing this is not correct wording, but I thought he was developing normally. And then it was after his 3rd polio DTaP vaccine. It was very subtle,
Mhm.
and everyone thought I was crazy, but it was the eye contact. So, he instantaneously stopped making eye contact, and then the other thing that triggered it was he didn't care if I was in the room or not,
Mm,
when previously he did.
yeah. Yeah.
So, when he was diagnosed, the doctor that diagnosed him, she actually said to me, she said, "Listen, this is a lot of information." She's like, "You need to sit with this for a little while." But like you I wanted to get moving. I didn't wanna waste any time.
Mhm.
Time is not on our side for these kids.
Mhm. Yeah.
It's not, so I wanted to get moving. So, I mean, I listened to her for maybe a day,
Yeah.
but then I was like, "Yeah, no, okay. Like, this is gonna take time, obviously, but I need to start getting him help as soon as possible."
Mhm.
Uh whatever that looked like. And at first it was early intervention, and then we went into ABA. But it's hard. Every day you don't know what their mood's going to be, what they're going to melt down about today. And then us, we're always we're constantly in fight or flight. You have to sleep with one eye open. You can never, well, for me, I feel like I can never fully relax. Connor's my only child. So for you, Sarah, you know what a neurotypical child
Yeah. Yeah.
is like having, and then you
Yeah.
have, Millie and Mac.
Yep.
So I can't even imagine the differences.
The gap, I always say
Yeah, the gap.
there's the gap, like,
Yeah.
I feel so grateful to experience both, and yet that chasm, Morgan and Millie are only 2.5 years apart. If you are out and about and you see both of them and know both of them and are understanding of, like, Millie's diagnosis versus her sister's, that gap seems upwards of 6, 7, 8 years now. And I don't say that to be dramatic. That's what a typical observation would say. Like, yeah, they're probably 6, 7, 8 years apart.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What
then,
does
you kept I'm sorry to cut you off, you keep saying I kept saying, "Next year will be better. He'll catch up next year."
Mhm.
Always, next year he'll talk. Next year he'll, you know, know more than he knows this year. Um, and I've had to just stop saying that.
Yeah. You what would be, or what does a day-to-day logistically look like for you that you could paint the picture, not as a way to, like, force reality down someone's throat, but I know when I share that I have to still help my kids, like, unzipper their pull or their pajamas. Talk me through a day-to-day. Like, Connor wakes up and what happens?
Well, Connor wakes up, and I gotta say, I mean, I'm very blessed and lucky that that his self-interest behaviors have you know died down significantly, if not are very minimal. But I have to help him take off his he sleeps in a diaper, so I have to help him take off his diaper. I put him on the potty, help him pull his pants on, take his shirt off, help him dress, help him undress, help him brush his teeth, eat him up his breakfast, which is not normal at all. It's fried
Mhm.
zucchini sticks.
Yeah.
So it's not, like I'm making him waffles or pancakes. Um, and then just trying to get myself ready, right? Now that I stopped working, Friday was my last day. I have this week off, and now I'm going to be doing a new job. So now I have, not only have to get him ready, I have to get myself ready. So, while he's eating, usually I'm trying to run around and get myself together.
Mhm.
But I'm usually preparing his vitamins, preparing his minerals,
Mhm.
preparing his lunch for school, preparing his water. You can't say, Connor, can you give me your
Exactly.
cup? Bring me your cup.
Yeah.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
I always laugh when people are like, yeah, it's the smallest of things that you continually have to do that you were so convinced that would be eradicated at a certain age, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, you saying that, I'm sitting here going, yeah, like, if I forget the water bottle, Millie's not reminding me. Right.
No, no. No, I mean, I've forgot his water bottle a couple of times. I'm like, "Oh, just give him a straw with a cup. At least he knows how to drink out of that."
Exactly, exactly.
I mean, I've definitely loosened the reins, a little, but I'm still, I'm very protective over him. But like I said, because we're doing, some out of the box stuff, so vitamins, minerals, homeopathic drops,
Mhm.
preparing his lunch, preparing his water, making sure he has snacks. And then sometimes just trying to get out of the house is, because he wants to play or he wants to, do what he wants to do.
Yeah, how does that what does that look like for Connor, but maybe more specifically, like, little boys that are around his same age? I have a difficult time I have to really talk about transitions to my son. There's a lot of input that goes into getting him out of the house.
That actually definitely helps a lot. We think these kiddos don't understand.
You have to understand.
I'm convinced they just try to trick us and they're enjoying it.
I think that they're like, "I have agency, strong and more will than you will, mom."
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I know what you're saying, but, guess what? I'm gonna
Yeah, it
pretend
doesn't work
like
for me. That
yeah.
doesn't work for me. I am really happy with Paw Patrol right now, and, like, nothing is going to pull me away from this.
Yeah, oh, yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, he's pretty good into a routine, but then, now you have him standing on we come out the front door and then I have a couple of steps, so now I'm always have my hand on him, to make sure I have that God forbid he decides to take off that one day. You never know. You never know. You always have to be on alert, on high alert.
Did he go through a phase of bolting and eloping?
Knock on wood, no, but I still don't trust it.
Yeah.
My dad came by and maybe a year ago and put these special bolts on the
Yeah.
top of my
Yep.
all of my doors to the
Yep.
outside. Because Connor has, with a lot of these kiddos, they have low muscle tone, so he has a hard time, turning. I mean, he
Yes.
has the up and down handle
Mhm. Yeah.
mastered, but I still have the turn knobs for my doors, but I still like, he's actually his motor skills are getting so much better that I was so concerned with, him letting himself out the front door. So, I have these crazy bolt locks
Well, I
on
mean, I do
my
too. I've got
yeah.
triple locks on everything, and again, it's I don't even see it as crazy. I see it as being, like, resourceful because I need 2nd and 3rd chances
Yeah,
that are
oh yeah.
my own
Yeah.
purpose.
Yeah, yeah. Even if it gives you an extra second,
That's exactly,
that
exactly
is
what it is.
huge. That is huge.
Exactly. So Connor then goes off to school. He's at school in his program. I know that you fought for services and getting him in the right placement for things, which is another whole part of the platform that I'm trying to build out here too, is to really allow for what you see at home, what you as the mother intuitively know your child needs socially, emotionally, physically at school. And you said he's been doing great there. What does after school look like for you? What does the rest of the day look like? Is
I'm
he able
ac
to share about his day? Is he able to
No, he can't share about his day. I can usually tell or his babysitter because I'm working, obviously. His babysitter, will usually give me an update. He came out happy, he came out sad, he threw himself on the floor when he came out. So usually I get an update from her, and then I have to get an update from the teacher. The teacher emails me daily to tell me
Mhm,
how his day was. And that entails, did he go to the bathroom? Did he have an accident? Did he eat? Did he push anyone off the trampoline today? Those kind of things, which look a lot different from your neurotypical children.
mhm,
He can't tell me how his day went, so we're reading his body language, we're reading his facial expressions,
mhm.
um, and then going off of what his babysitter reports back to us, which his babysitter is wonderful. I call her the second mom
Totally.
because I wouldn't be able to do it without her. And then his teacher. So then, he gets picked up and then he goes to either he comes home. Most of the time he'll come home first. He
Mhm.
has some more vitamins. Um, and then she'll usually take him to have a snack and then, do some activities, whether it's, swim after school or whether it's, social skills,
Mm.
PT. But, he can't tell me, "Ma, I don't wanna go." So we have to read his body language. We have to, is he saying he doesn't wanna go because he just doesn't wanna go
He's
because
just
he's
a
busy?
six-year-old little boy and doesn't wanna go, right? Like, I
Yeah,
always think, like,
right.
what is sometimes just the typical little boy just saying and being, just assertive in their independence, and what is actually their sensory overload, and then the expectations that are put on them, it's so hard as parents to divorce that. And I think you hit on something too about, I was talking to a trauma-informed therapist, and she was sharing with me that clients of hers will often say, and these are people that have gone through like very traumatic life experiences, and they say, I learned a lot of skills through my trauma that I don't want to lose. And I think that's like what you hit on, like about these hypervigilant things, like reading body language, being so attuned to like his demeanor, his like aura of like how he presents himself on a day to day. And it's like the hardest thing. It's one of the hardest things for me to integrate always is I've learned so many skills in being Millie and Max, but I'm still sometimes angry that I had to learn them, right?
For sure. For
So
sure.
there's this like
Absolutely.
total friction in that. Like, how do you feel about those?
Yeah. I mean, absolutely. I'm like, first of all, and it goes, it gets even bigger. I don't understand. Why do I have to? I shouldn't have to, like you said, I shouldn't have to learn his body language.
I
Like, he
shouldn't
should
have
just
to
be
learn
able to,
such a depth to it.
yeah, yeah. And like, but I think one of the most important things as their mom is I don't know about you, but for me, I actually feel his pain a lot of the
Mhm.
time,
Yeah.
and I've had to distinguish, and, you to my therapist and you made me really dig down deep and say, it's okay to be a mom and it's okay to work and it's okay to, want the best for our children. And for me, I had to really dig deep and say, okay, learn all of these things. And yeah, I get angry. Like, why do I have to learn body language? Why do I have to learn, he doesn't do more like this. He does more like this. That's and then that goes into, you can't leave him with just any babysitter. You need a babysitter that is aware of special needs. It's this whole big spiral. It truly is. You're spending more money on a babysitter that has experience, right? You're spending more money on all the extracurricular activities because you want them to socialize or learn how to socialize or be okay in social situations.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm. Yeah, it's a constant reorientation to a world that is not beautifully supportive and accepting in the way because that's how the system of society was built. And I think that the more in which we just share vulnerably, as I always say, about the truth, about the actual lived experiences inside the homes in the walls of homes like yours and mine, of trusting that the mother's intuition and the mother's gut and the mother's desires and the mother's patterned recognition over time, there is no one that knows Connor and who Connor is better than you, period. There is no single human that can relay who he is, why he is, what's worked, what hasn't better than you, the mom. And it's one of the things that I so deeply feel is like this mission of mine, because I think it's one of the only powers that has risen up greater for me in having Millie and Mac that I didn't harness nearly as much in my typical oldest. And
yeah.
it doesn't make it bad, or I don't feel angry at myself for that, but it really comes to this understanding that as a female and a mother to these children, it is the one thing that I can say without a doubt is so absolutely scientific and proven. And I think the more in which, and thank you for sharing so vulnerably about your day to day and what it's like to be Connor's mom, that the more these stories add up, the more that people share, the more that we get actual one-on-one conversation with mothers and caregivers of children on the spectrum, that amount of real data cannot be denied at
No,
all.
no. And Sarah, you were the one that helped me, get Connor's IEP in order. I knew what I wanted. I just couldn't properly demand it, I guess was the right word, or properly fight for him. And I'm forever grateful for that. A lot of parents or a lot of moms don't even know that you can have a parent statement. And that is huge. That is so, so huge. And I remember sitting in our first IEP meeting and they were they were actually speechless with the parent statement. They were like, "We wish all parents would do this."
Well, I think it speaks from your lived experience as their mother, and to share it both cognitively, logistically, and with deep clarity, it will transform an IEP meeting in a way that gives that power that control, that leadership back to the moms and caregivers entering the room, because that room is set up by default to be one of anxiety-ridden
Yes.
pressure, and it's a pressure cooker for love. When love gets pressure cooked, it becomes explosive and it becomes erratic and it becomes chaotic. And I think that what I love, and I'm so thankful that I got to, help you out with this, is that it put that power back in you based on that love and what you've witnessed in Connor. And I'm, again, so thankful to have been given the honor to do that. I think more stories like yours hopefully will be coming out here on Inchstones too. I've
I
got so
hope
many
so.
talking to. And just thank you so much for today and for talking about Connor so beautifully. You're carrying it better than you know. You know that you should be really proud of yourself too for that.
Thank you. Well, you should be really proud of yourself as well. You
Thanks.
make a big difference in everyone's hearts.
Well, thank you very much. And with that, Kerry's going to sign off, but we will be having many, many more fellow moms that are living this life day in and day out here during the whole month of May on the Inchstones podcast. Thanks for being here, everyone.
Thanks so much, Sarah.